I am Ray, and if you can't let go of the past, well, you're in luck. Because that's what we're going to talk about today. So you can finally break free and start living the life you actually want to live. Not in this hell realm nightmare loop. Nobody wants that. So the first thing you got to ask yourself, number one, is do you actually want to change? Maybe more specifically, do you actually want life to get better? Because you can say no and continue. Like I have my friend, we've been buddies for a long time, but he cannot let go of the past. That's all he does is ruminate on the past and all the bad things that have happened to him. And he's stuck there. Why? Well, first of all, because of drugs and alcohol, but unless you have that desire to change, nothing will happen. And it doesn't mean you have to change overnight or be perfect. It just means you have to have that intention of, okay, I realize that I don't want to live this life anymore like this. I want to live something like different, like better. Just make that decision in your mind. You can do it right now if you want. It's not trapping you in this infinite responsibility that now that you've made this decision, you have to put in all this work to be free. It's not how it works. It's like pointing your mind in the right direction. How much effort does it take to put your GPS, I want to go here, I want to go to McDonald's. And why are you going to McDonald's in the first place? Look, the point is, until you realize that life sucks and you don't want to live this way anymore, you're going to stay stuck. Because without pain, there's no motivation. And if you're not aware of that pain, you're not going to be motivated. There's a good second tip for you today. Be at least a little bit sober, for Christ's sake. Because there's nothing that'll keep you stuck in the past more than drugs and alcohol. Now, I'm not perfect either, okay? But seriously, you will not see life clearly if your mind is always being polluted by outside substances. And the problem with drugs and alcohol is that they numb the pain. It's actually the solution. And this is the worst thing you can do. Because, well, imagine putting your hand on a hot stove. If you're really paying attention and looking at that seems hot, let me do it. You're not going to do it. Your body won't let you do it. Even if you tried. Unless you're a baby and you did it on accident. But if you were looking over here, not paying attention, you could flop hand pancake. And maybe it would take like a second for your brain to receive those pain transmitters or whatever, however it works. And then you lift it up. Or you might just hate yourself and you just... It's exactly the same thing with addictions. You won't change until you are aware of how much suffering a certain thing is causing you. And you cannot be aware of how much suffering it's causing you if you're using substances to numb that pain. So you also have to be aware of how much it sucks to be numbed out. But the point is, you have to set yourself up for success. You don't even need to be sober forever. You just need the time to get clear on who you are, who you want to become, what has happened in the past, processing everything, letting go, figuring it out, just figuring out how to live, for Christ's sake. There is nothing that will slow you down more than not being sober. And the problem is, I could say that, smoking weed is a plant medicine. And it would be true, but for a lot of people, it's just a numbing agent. They don't look at it that way. They don't look at weed as spiritual. And a teacher, just another drug. So these are some kind of beginning steps because through your awareness, everything will be healed. Everything will be let go of. Awareness is the cure. It's like, let's say someone betrays you and you're really angry at them. Well, if you suddenly were aware of their whole life story and you walked in their shoes and you got a flash of their whole life before you, every single experience they went through to lead them up to that point in which they betrayed you, you would not be able to keep that resentment in your heart. It wouldn't be possible. Because you would be aware of what they went through and their experiences. And you could relate to that. And because you could relate to that, you would understand why they did what they did. And once you understand why they did what they did, you get it. Doesn't mean you wouldn't have boundaries still. It just means you get it. It's like they were probably abused and hurt by many people, so they abused and hurt you. It's just abuse everywhere. And then you realize, okay, well, if I don't want that cycle to continue, you stop feeding it. Because you don't want more misery, do you? The point is, what keeps us stuck in the past, and there's probably a few things, but one of them is not knowing why. Not understanding what happened. Not fully processing your experiences. And it is through becoming aware in which you receive the wisdom of that experience, of what it was trying to teach you, of how it can transform you into a better version of yourself. And well, if you don't seek that wisdom, if you don't seek to understand and actually find some answers, you can be stuck in the past forever. And another thing, you don't necessarily need the answers. You just need to process what happened. Because, you could spend your whole life looking for answers. So for me, it's like, okay, personally, I like thinking and reflecting about the past and going through these situations and what went wrong, what can I do better. But fundamentally, I realized, oh, okay, well, it was meant to happen. So there was no mistake, there was no problem that happened. It was meant to happen. It was supposed to happen. And the responsibility is not on me. But I can still, for all intents and purposes, take responsibility of what happened and use it as a time to reflect upon how I can be better. And once you kind of do this, well, the situation works itself out. And you're no longer wallowing in suffering. Now, I'm going to use an example from Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you've ever watched that, it's a cartoon. And so, the main character and his guru, we're talking about chakras, opening the chakras. And the guru was explaining that, I dropped my pen. Chakras are now balanced. Okay. Imagine a stream. Let's see, I don't know if I can. So here's a big mountain. And here's the water coming down. If everything's running smoothly, what will happen is that the water will come down, pool up, and then flow over. And continue and flow in nice one singular flow. But the problem is, if there's stagnation, if there's a bunch of stuff getting in the way, the water can pool up and stay stagnant and not flow and become all bacteria infested. Not good. Don't pee in that water. And the same thing happens in life. When we get stuck in the past, it's like that water pooling up and staying stagnant. Our growth stops and we stay stuck. That's why we feel like we're stuck. We feel like we're in a rut. A contraction phase where things aren't going the way we want them to. We're literally just frozen in time. So we have to get the flow going again. And how do we do this? We have to change our mindset about the situation. Because our current mindset is what is keeping us stuck. That's all it is. Whatever it is that we're contemplating, our philosophy on life, or the perspectives that we have, the ways that we look at things. I mean, if you are stuck in the past, it means that the way you look at things is what is causing you stuck in the past. It's causing you to be stuck. Because if you had different mindsets, you wouldn't be stuck. So now you understand a little bit about the beginning. So first you ask yourself, do you want to change? Do you want to be better? Do you want to live a good life? And just that recognition alone begins stirring up that stagnation. Because you haven't just accepted your fate. You haven't given up and say, okay, who cares anymore? Let it all go. This helps get the energy flowing again. And then, of course, being sober is just helps you get through it. Of course, not being sober also helps you get through it, kind of. But it prevents you from understanding and processing things. It's just kind of passing the time. And so really what we want to find is those little branches in the pile of leaves, and maybe some rocks and some dirt that are preventing the flow and that are causing stagnation. And so what we have to do is we have to step outside of the situation as a third perspective, unbiased, neutral way of looking at things. Because if you're too much in the situation, you're going to be too much emotionally attached to it. And you're going to be psychologically ruminating about it. You'll get pulled into it, lack clarity, just suffer. So you got to be a little bit detached from it. Like a scientist, you are going back into the past with your little magnifying glass, like Sherlock Holmes even, and you're trying to understand what happened. You're trying to truly process whatever it is that you can't let go of. So let's say there are 3 keys. 1 key, 2 key. I'm not saying 3. That's what you expected. And let's pretend that these 3 keys are lost in the past. And in order to step into your new life, you need to return to the past, find the keys so you can open the door to your best life, to your new life. Now, there could be 30 keys. I don't know. Everyone's situation is unique. But let's just say 3. And what this might look like is like, well, let's say you had a relationship in the past. They screwed you over. They betrayed you. You're still salty about it. Now, the specific example is not as important as the message I'm getting across. So this terrible thing happened. You can't let it go. You gotta go back, find the key. And what might this look like? Well, maybe in the relationship, you were just a beta. You thought you were doing the right things, but you were actually just not. Meaning, maybe you were the nice guy. Maybe you went and bought your partner all these presents. And you really wanted to show how much you loved them. And they didn't reciprocate. So you begin to become aware, like, oh, I see. My behavior is what led to this negative situation. My attitude, my mindset, I was living in ignorance. Or it's like, how a man gets divorced after 20 years and she takes all his stuff. And the kids. If they're not already grown up. And a man is sitting there like, what the heck happened? Not realizing that there were all these steps along the way that were leading to this outcome. It was ignorance. It was a lack of awareness of not paying attention to the reality before you. Getting too caught up in whatever you wanted to see and not seeing the truth. Being stuck in your own little world. And the longer you live in that ignorance, the more you're going to be blindsided by life. And things are going to happen. You're going to say, I have no idea how I got here. All those little things that add up to a big problem. Like kicking the can down the road. Not dealing with the problems when you needed to deal with it. Putting things under the rug. Pretending that they're not there. Because it's uncomfortable to talk about. It's uncomfortable to think about and speak about. So you didn't pay attention to it. You thought you could just ignore it, move on, and everything was going to be okay. It's not how life works. You see your mistakes, and you understand it. And once you understand it, the past will let you go. Now you can see that there is probably many keys, at least in my experience. Like, have you ever repeated the same behavior pattern over and over again for years and years and years, and you don't understand why you can't escape it? Well, it's because there's all of these keys that you need to find in order to move on. It's like a treasure hunt. Except for the treasure hunt is in a dark forest. And it's scary. You have to travel back into the past and in the darkness of your mind and face all the monsters and the demons. Nobody wants to do that. Which is why they don't. Which is why people stay stuck. There we go. So here's what is actually happening underneath the surface. So you have the mind and you have the body. And the mind's purpose is to function the body like a little controller, moving it around and stuff. Receiving information, interpreting that information, giving it meaning. And the body takes that information and uses it for survival purposes. The mind speaks the language of patterns, and the body speaks the language of feelings. And how it works is that anytime you have a strong emotional response to anything in this life, your body records whatever it is that caused that emotional response. And it stores it in your body as memory for later, for survival purposes. So what happens is that if you've been screwed over in the past, or something bad has happened and you can't let go of that experience, the reason you can't let go is because your body is hijacking your system. It's hijacking your attention and causing you to hyper-focus on the past for survival purposes. Because the next time you experience that thing, you might not survive. So your body needs you to go back into the past and figure it out before it lets you move on, because it's not going to let you do anything stupid. It's not going to let you threaten your own survival, even though by ruminating on the past, you're actually ruining your life. So the body in this modern age is constantly ruining and sabotaging our life on accident. Your body's always trying to help you. It's always trying to save you. But we get in the way, don't listen to the body, and allow our mind to run our life straight into the ground. Like, imagine yourself as a house. Here's the daddy, here's the mommy. Most people are a reflection of why the divorce rate is above 50%. 60% even. Because their mind is disassociated from their body. There's no connection. And so therefore you're not listening. You're not listening to what your body's telling you. You're not listening to what life is telling you. Because if you were, you'd figure it out. And you will figure it out. But there are certain things we have to understand. The moment you understand clearly what actually happened in the past, whatever experience you can't let go of, once you understand it and you have the awareness, your body stops forcing you to stay stuck. That's why we got to find those keys. And you might find key number 5, but you haven't found key number 1. So you might think, oh, I'm making progress, or maybe I'm finally done with this. I finally moved on. And then it comes back, and then you're like, no, I thought it was done. More. Why? And you just keep going. Keep going. And you'll experience a little bit of relief every single time. A little bit less pressure. A little bit less stuckness. So looky here. Your body is telling you, okay, the reason that you're stuck in the past is because there's this trauma stored in your body. There's memory stored in the body. You're not even stuck in the past. The past is literally stuck in you because it's memory. So the body, the unconscious, is going to cause you to focus on the past. Not even because it's trying to, it's just because that memory is there. And your body's basically telling you, you need to reflect on this because you can't risk this happening again. So you need to figure it out. And until you figure it out, I'm not letting you move on with your life. And you might say, well, I've already spent years trying to figure it out. I haven't figured it out yet. But that's the thing. I mean, all it takes is one piece of information to absolutely change everything. But this is not like, easy stuff. This is some of the most difficult stuff we ever have to deal with. So just because you spent years trying to figure it out doesn't mean you figured it out yet. But you've made a good progress. Congratulations. Even if you haven't really noticed it, there's always going to be a little bit of progress no matter what you're doing. As long as you're moving forward, as long as you got your GPS tapped in. I just want to live better. That is all. And when you live from those intentions, life comes to your aid to help you through it. So you can break free from the past through revelations, realizations of things you weren't previously aware of. Now, to dive just a little bit deeper, you could say one of the fundamental themes of this life is returning to wholeness. Carl Jung called this individuation. It's about essentially returning to a state of perfection, of totality. So, for example, there's a male and there's a female, and you're either one or the other, at least most often. But a male can't be whole without a female, and vice versa. They need each other. And you can't have one without the other. And so we fundamentally exist in separation. Separation, you could say, is also a lack of wholeness. So you exist as one of the parts. Imagine a nice pie. You like pie? There you go. Pie for dinner. So there's a whole pie, and then there's the parts, pieces of pie. And you are one of those pies. Pieces. That is. And fundamentally, we have this drive to return back to where we came from. So like imagine you were a little pie and you went on an adventure and you hopped out of the window and now you're running across the street. Gonna go talk to that raccoon over there as he tries to eat you. Bad mistake. You go on this little adventure, but eventually you feel this inherent drive to return back to where you came from. So for example, you will be attracted to, as a male or a female, those who help you return back to wholeness. So they talk about like twin flames and stuff like that. What does this mean? It means that energetically, male and female are already energetically aligned. They're polarity, so they're attracted to each other. But there's also a deeper level to this where your particular energetic signature will be attracted to somebody else who is a reflection of you. So all of your particular ways of being, all of your thoughts, all of your feelings, all of your beliefs and opinions, you will naturally be attracted to people who help you return to totality. And it goes from the fundamental level of masculine and femininity to a more detailed level where your particular life will attract specific, unique people. And the same thing happens in the relationships that don't work out. The point I'm trying to make is that life presents to you situations that are designed specifically to help you return to wholeness. Sometimes they break you apart first, and that's a big part of it. But once you begin realizing that the situations you go through are designed to help you, it begins changing the way you look at things. Because you're no longer saying, okay, this was a mistake, this should not have happened. I hate myself for this. I can't let go of the past. I hate myself. And I hate others who have done this to me. I hate that other person for treating me bad. And I hate myself for letting them treat me bad. Doesn't matter what you went through. The fact is that the reason certain things happen, like a bad experience that leaves you stuck in the past, is because when we live in separation, we are imbalanced. Imbalance is the opposite of wholeness. It's like if you take one piece of the pie out, it's not a whole pie, it's not balanced. And that imbalance causes us to act and think and believe in things that are not accurate. They're not aligned with the truth. And because we act out of alignment with the truth, we create massive problems in our life. Now, it's not your fault, it's just how life is set up. And it's supposed to be set up that way on purpose. You're not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be imperfect and make a lot of mistakes. You're supposed to have these negative experiences that make you feel like poop. Because through that suffering, it drives you to awaken. As I like to say, the source of all suffering is unconsciousness. It's ignorance. It's not being aware of the truth. It's being out of alignment with truth. But the source of all enlightenment is suffering. Because suffering wakes you up. It makes you more aware. Now there's productive suffering and there's not productive suffering. And that's what we want to change. We want to go from, I'm just ruminating on the past and how bad this sucked, to, I want to live a good life. I'm tired of this. I don't want to live in the past anymore. The past is the past. It doesn't matter anymore. And once you flip your attitude, your unconscious, your system, life in general, begins throwing out some crumbs for you. Like, here, follow this. Check this out. Think about this for a minute. Life is playing this game with you. And it's a dance. And it's trying to lead you back toward goodness and wholeness. But until you stop wallowing in the emotional and the psychological storm, you will not be able to hear what life is trying to tell you. So you got to slow down, shift your mindset, and say, if that situation was trying to help me, if it wasn't actually bad, if I'm just judging it and labeling it as bad, well, how would it be trying to help me? And you don't need to believe it necessarily, you just got to be open. Because once you're open, now you can receive information. And you will not be able to receive that information until you get out of the psychological and emotional storm. Because when you're emotional, and attached to the situation, you're going to hyper-focus on all the suffering, on the negativity, on the problem, on the struggle, on the hatred, on the shame and the guilt and the fear. That is why we want a little bit of detachment, reframing the way we look at things so that we can actually, for the first time, deal with the situation. The divine orchestrator of this life knows what you need. And it's not always pretty. Because think about it, if life was perfect, the first thing you would do is destroy it all. I promise you that. You might say, I want life to be great and perfect and all wonderful. And you're only saying that because you probably lived in a life that sucks in the past. You do not want to live a perfect life. You want to live an imperfect life and strive for perfection, something that you are never going to reach. Because once you reach perfection, the only thing left to do is destroy it. And so what you will find is that once you begin looking at things this way, you will begin seeing your imbalance. So you know you have strengths and you know you have weaknesses. Maybe you never articulated them. But the fact is that whatever situation you can't let go of is trying to teach you something. It's trying to teach you something about yourself. And what it's trying to teach you is that of no fault of your own, we are born into this life imbalanced and have to return to balance. So there's some part of your psyche that needs to evolve. For example, let's use a relationship again, because I think people can relate to this. I think. Let's say you're a man. You had a relationship with someone, and it didn't work out, and it ended badly even. Why? Well, the way to stay stuck in the past is to blame the other person and just assume that it's all their fault. And you don't get anywhere with that. You ask yourself, what did I do wrong? And once you honestly ask yourself that question, the answers will arise, eventually at least. You'll realize, oh, I was living in lack and scarcity. I was needy. I was always in my thoughts. I was jealous. I was this. I was that. It becomes obvious. Once you have that awareness, the chances of you ever making that mistake again are almost zero. Because now you know what went wrong and what to do moving forward. So in the next relationship, for instance, you'll realize that your behavior, your thought patterns led to a negative outcome. You stop doing that because you realize it doesn't work. You get rid of the source of that imbalance and things work out a little bit better. But because you're an imperfect human being, that relationship might not work out either. And it's not that you have to always be trying to fix yourself, because you don't want to get stuck in that mentality either. There are these certain things, like secrets of the universe, that we are not aware of, but that we need to understand. Like, when I do this, it leads to this outcome. The causes and effects of life. And you can see and reflect on your own life and your experiences. And if life isn't going the way you want it to, you understand that there's an underlying cause of that effect. And that cause is in you. It's not outside of you. Life is not happening to you. It's happening from you and through you. So you begin to realize as you go along this journey that life is a reflection of you. It's like a mirror. And that if life isn't going the way you want it to, all you got to do is change within. All you got to do is return to balance. Because when you are in balance, you are in harmony. And where there is harmony, there are no problems. And where there is a lack of harmony, there's problems. And to simplify this, the two main reasons we become imbalanced in this life. It first begins with our relationship to our parents. You got two sides. You got the masculine and you got the feminine. And your relationship to your parents will determine your relationship to the masculine and the feminine. And if you are like a normal person, you've probably had a little bit of trauma, some conditioning. So you're going to be attached to one side or the other. And that leads to imbalance. The attachment is the problem. It's that psychic attachment that leads you to make the so-called mistake in which now you can't let go of. So, for example, and I'm sure Most people have kind of considered this before, but like in the past, if you had just been better, it wouldn't have happened. Now, of course, you can't think that way because if you could have done something different, you would have. But if you think about it, these big mistakes or these big problems in our life come because we weren't good enough. Sometimes your best isn't good enough. So you don't have to blame yourself, though. You don't have to beat yourself up. You just have to realize, okay, this is part of the game of life. It's not being good enough, and that's okay. A big part of this is learning how to forgive yourself, and it's being kind and compassionate to yourself while on this journey of self-improvement. Because if you don't improve, you'll keep repeating the same mistakes again and again. But if you don't forgive yourself and have kindness and compassion, you're going to be miserable your whole life because you're always going to feel like you're not good enough, and you're going to beat yourself like a dog and just suffer. So what often happens is that, we're in a situation in life, and that will call for masculine energy or feminine energy. And if you're really attached to masculine energy when life calls you to have feminine energy, it's like you're floating through space and there's a triangular hole coming straight at you. And right now you're a square. So when you hit that triangle, it's going to be bad because you're not going to fit through. That's kind of how life is. Life demands of you certain things. If you can't meet that demand, it kills you. So you have to be able to be malleable and adaptable, like a shape-shifting shape. Wow. If life demands of you to be a triangle, you got to be a triangle. You can't be a square. Because if you remain as a square, you can't move on. You stay stuck. So this whole process is about adapting. Adaptation, overcoming, evolution. Becoming aware of your strengths. Because if you're too attached to the masculine, that means the masculine essence is your strength. Same over here. Now, just because if you're a man, you have strong feminine energy doesn't mean you're a loser or weird. It's just how it is. Same thing if you're a woman and you got strong masculine energy doesn't mean you're off or wrong. It's just how life is. But once you recognize your strengths, okay, if I just started integrating the opposite energy, things would return to balance. And I don't even need to know exactly what to do. So this is the great thing. You don't need to spend years of trying to figure it all out. There's just a few things you need to pay attention to. Like, what is your strength? Like, are you really good at tackling and defeating problems and overcoming? And you just brute force your way through life like a big gorilla? Breaking through barriers, achieving goals? Well, that's great. But you also got to integrate the emotional, vulnerable aspect of yourself. The one that loves unconditionally. That doesn't need these big barriers and these big walls in order to protect themselves from the world. And a lot of the times, the reason we can't let go is because we don't understand why things went wrong. But this is why. It comes from imbalance. It comes from a lack of integration. So, for example, we have an ego. And this ego is our center of identity. And we also got a shadow. So our ego is like our personality. It's the person we believe ourselves to be. I just use it as the same thing as a persona. Maybe they're different. I don't care. And the shadow is all the rejected parts of yourself that you don't like or that you don't want. It's also your weakness. So if your ego is very masculine, then the feminine is going to be stuck in your shadow. And vice versa. If you have a feminine ego, your masculinity is going to be stuck in the shadow. So you got to go back into the shadow, pull it out, integrate it into your life. The problems leave you alone. And again, relationships are such a good example because everybody sucks at them. Like if you're a guy, right? You're a masculine man. You got a mustache. Well, your biggest problem in relationships is going to happen because you don't understand the woman. She's speaking another language. You can tell she's emotionally distressed and you ask her, "What's wrong? Let me help you. Let me save you." And she says, "Oh, nothing's wrong. Nothing's wrong." And then you keep demanding, what's wrong with you? Tell me. She says nothing. Nothing. Nothing's all good. So the masculine gets frustrated and says, okay, if you're not going to tell me, then forget about it. And then she starts crying, what's wrong with me? Or not. Maybe she still doesn't tell you. As a masculine man in that situation, you don't understand the feminine and how she works. Which leads you to tension, argumentation, disruption in the relationship, and eventually an ending of the relationship. Because if there's no communication, there's no relationship. And if you're too stubborn, stuck in your own ways, too attached to your strengths, you're going to assume, okay, it's her fault because she can't communicate to me what's her problem. But the actual truth is it's your fault because you don't understand the feminine. Because you haven't met the feminine in your own self. So life demands of you, hey, pay attention. This situation is happening because you do not recognize the feminine in yourself and you have no relationship to the feminine in yourself. And therefore, you're always going to have problems with relationship to the feminine outside of yourself. And your whole life, your body, and life itself is going to be communicating to you that message. And if you don't listen, the situations will get worse and worse and worse until the pain is so much that you finally wake up. And the same thing will happen if you're too attached to the feminine, whether you're a man or a woman. Like in a relationship, if you're a feminine man and your partner is a little bit more masculine, the problem that will arise is that the woman will be the one initiating everything. She'll be the one making plans, doing things, taking care of business, providing the money, and eventually she's going to get resentful because she doesn't want to do that because that's the man's job. But as a feminine man, you don't do it because it doesn't feel natural. So what happens, she gets stuck taking care of a child man, and there's this weird dynamic between like a mom and her son. The man is incompetent, too feminine, too chaotic, not masculine, can't figure it out. That creates problem in the relationship because the man is designed to carry these burdens in different ways that a woman is designed. Like a woman is designed to carry the emotional burdens of life and the pain of childbirth and things like that. A man can work 12 hours a day for years and it's cool because we can handle it. But a woman, she's going to get a lot more upset and struggle a lot more with that than a man will, even if she's super masculine, because her female brain will tell her, you shouldn't be doing this. There should be a man doing this. And so all women who date feminine men will eventually become resentful, and the man will certainly become resentful because both people are betraying their inherent nature. Now, that's just the blueprint. If you're a female, you have a female blueprint. If you're a man, you have a man blueprint. And this comes with certain rules and regulations. And you can pretend all you want that they don't exist, like a lot of people do, and keep yourself miserable. These are not social constructs. These energies are ingrained, the deepest layers of who you are. But here's the key. Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're a masculine woman or a feminine man, you will still have to develop both energies, lest you be imbalanced. So it's not like we have a choice. You just have to recognize, okay, which side am I attached on? Like, for instance, I've always been attached to chaos. I've always been more feminine, even since I was little. And I recognized from a very early age, even if I wasn't consciously aware of it, that in order for me to live a good life, I had no choice but to develop this aspect. And the great news is that because I understand my weaknesses and my strengths, I don't need to think about it all that much. I know what to do if I want to live a better life, if I want to live free. Whatever problem we experience in our life is arising because of an imbalance. So oftentimes, and maybe it's a little bit more tricky and complex for you, But you can generally say, okay, this problem happened because I was too masculine or because I was too feminine. And therefore, by integrating the opposite energy, I can return to wholeness and the past will let me go. Because think about it. Let's say you're too feminine. Well, then problems will arise because you have a lack of boundaries. Because boundaries is a masculine thing. So you might allow someone to enter into your space and pollute you with their poisonous mind. You may be reflecting on that all the time, like, oh, this person, I hate them. They did this thing to me. And now I can't let go. But once you realize, oh, it's because I didn't have boundaries. You forgive yourself, you realize what went wrong, and now you just make the intention to create more boundaries. And once you do that, that situation won't happen again. Because you found the root cause, solved it, done. If you were too masculine, chances are you were too stuck in your ways, too rigid, too strong opinions and beliefs that you couldn't get out of. And that blinded you, caused the problem. The solution might be to be more open-minded, to have more kindness and compassion, to be more emotional and feel your feelings. But I can't tell you what you need to do. Only you can do that. These are just examples to kind of get you an idea. And it may not be as simple as, okay, I just need to integrate the opposite energy. There's layers, like many layers. Now, another way to let go of the past, a little bit easier, I think, at least, maybe not to everyone. You could say even that what I've described so far is kind of the masculine way to approach it. Because the masculine essence is designed to adapt and overcome. There's a problem, let me fix it, done. So that's kind of what we did. It's like you reflect upon the past, you really think about it, you see what went wrong, you gain awareness, you integrate the solution, it's done. Very masculine way of approaching the situation. But there's also a feminine way, and this might relate to you more. You might feel like, oh yeah, that's the way I want to do it. Because you may not want or care to reflect about the past and try and figure it all out. You might not want to. And that's fine. You don't necessarily need to. It's just one way. But another way is that you release the emotional attachment to the past. Because that is what is keeping you stuck. As I said before, if you have a negative experience that creates negative feelings, it stores that memory in your body. It's an emotional attachment that keeps you stuck in the past. So, if you want to be free from the past, get rid of the emotional attachment. And it will be done. It's like, how do you move on from a breakup? You stop feeling about them. And how do you stop feeling about them? You stop thinking about them. You stop spending time with them. And eventually, the emotional attachment discharge, and you don't feel anything about them anymore. You're done. You're over it. That's called moving on. But so long as you have an emotional attachment, you'll stay stuck in the past. So all you got to do is discharge that emotion. Now, one way you can do this, you find a safe space to go into meditation. And what you do is that you begin to conjure up whatever it is that is keeping you stuck, whatever the images of the past. So, that image, which is the pattern, the memory stored in your body, because there's an emotional attachment, it will cause these emotions to arise. So when you reflect upon the past, if you're attached, if you're stuck, it will create emotions in response. It will trigger you. You might get angry, you might get sad, you might get resentful, you might hate, doesn't matter. Now the problem that most people make is that they don't ever take the time to actually deal with this. They don't deal with their emotions. They just try to move on with their life and pretend it doesn't happen, and then the past is weighing them down their whole life. If you take the time to just deal with it now, you don't have to deal with it again. So what you do in meditation, you allow the past to come up. The whole game, the whole practice is learning how to deal with these energies, your emotions. So for example, if anger arises when you reflect upon the past, what do? You sit with the anger. You hold it. Because anger is like fire, and if you don't know how to wield the fire, you're going to burn yourself and you're going to burn everyone else. And that's the problem if you don't sit down and intentionally deal with it. Because what's going to happen is you're going to probably be working or just doing your day, however that is, and something triggers you, bam, you're done. You're done. Because you haven't trained yourself to sit with those emotions, so they pull you all over the place. There's a low emotional intelligence where you're just getting triggered over stupid things. It's things that don't matter at all. You're getting emotionally frustrated over stupid things. And so this keeps you stuck in this perpetual state of low consciousness. You're just stressed out and miserable all the time. Life doesn't work out for you. People wonder why life doesn't work out for people. Like, do you realize that happens? Do you realize that people live and it doesn't work out for them? And there's also people who live and it works out perfectly for them? Why? What's the difference? Is it just random? Is life just cruel? Like a Russian roulette game? You don't get to die, you die? No, not at all. Life is neutral. As far as I can tell, the mirror is neutral. So if you don't like the reflection, what does that say about you? That's also why being a victim and blaming others keeps you trapped in the past forever. Because you never gain the awareness of the actual root of the problem, the root cause within you that leads to the effects of negative situations, negative experiences, problems. And those patterns will repeat themselves indefinitely until you change that memory stored in your body. That memory is the cause. And the effect is whatever happens in your life. So in meditation, you sit with yourself, and when the anger comes up, you just take your awareness and you look at the anger. You just feel it, you just be with it. You don't judge it, you don't think about it. You don't allow a negative story to begin churning in your mind. You don't entertain that, even if it comes up. I mean, you learn how to observe your thoughts, observe your feelings, so you don't get pulled all over the place by them. And what happens is that, well, that emotional pressure stored in your body gets released because you're not resisting it anymore. You're not running away from it. You're not fighting it. You're not just going about your day and getting triggered and reacting. You're learning how to respond to your own self. Every time you go through that emotional purge, you feel the anger, you feel the sadness or the resentment, doesn't matter what it is. It clears that emotional attachment. It begins allowing the flow of energy once again. Like in the stream example, it's like those sticks and the leaves and the rocks and the things that are blocking up the flow. It's all this pent up negative emotional energy. And so what happens is that you think about the past, and through feeling whatever comes up, you process what happened. You feel what you needed to feel back then. But your body probably protected you from feeling all those emotions because it might have killed you. So you experience it in smaller doses over long periods of time. A little bit of anger here and there isn't going to kill you. A lot of anger at once might. So you just relax, sit with yourself, allow the anger to come up, feel it, and just sit with it. And love it even. Because you're loving a part of your own self. You're loving your own energy. You're learning how to trust your body. You're learning how to trust yourself. And you're not judging yourself as bad as wrong, which is a source of much misery for most people. And what's going to happen is that, okay, every time you do this and you go out into your daily life, you're no longer going to get triggered as easy. You're no longer going to react to people's nonsense because you're learning how to deal with your own self. What you cannot deal with in yourself, you will not be able to tolerate in others. Like, for instance, if you're hypermasculine and you haven't accepted your feminine, you're going to look at other guys who are feminine and you're going to judge them and you're going to hate them and you're going to say, oh, they're losers. Same thing is going to happen if you're a woman. If you're a masculine woman, you're going to hold a resentment toward men and say things like, oh, well, all men suck. All men are terrible. The way you judge the world is a confession of character. The way you judge others is only revealing what you cannot handle or tolerate in your own self. And so instead of facing it, you repress it and project it onto other people. So that you can say, oh, this negative quality, this negative trait, it's not about me. It couldn't be. It's about them. They're the ones with that problem, with that negative thing. It's away from me. We create distance because we don't want to accept or even acknowledge that negativity in our own selves. That's why you hear, like, for instance, really masculine men. If they get triggered when you start talking about, hey, get in touch with your feminine side, well, they get triggered because they're too attached to their masculine. And you can see it. You know where you need to work on by what you get triggered by. Because what you get triggered by is a reflection of an underlying attachment. So watch what triggers you. Watch how you judge others. Because it's telling you and communicating to you something about yourself. Life is always talking to you. But the question is, how often do you listen? Not at all. Sometimes. Because if you really pay attention, you probably wouldn't need to be watching this video. Because God would be your guru and tell you everything. This is what you're doing wrong. This is what you need to do right. Keep going. Make an adjustment. But because we're lost in darkness, we don't listen. We need videos like this to remind us. Oh, okay. Everything's cool. So you might see that this is kind of the feminine way of doing things. Purging those pent-up emotions. And in that purging, in that catharsis of feeling those emotions that arise, you are cleansing yourself of the past. And you're breaking free from it. So, I've discussed the thinking way to approach this and the emotional way to approach this. And you can do both if you'd like. Because both work. But you can see, if you're a more masculine type, you might go towards this. And if you're a more feminine type, you probably feel like you resonate with this. And if you're a little bit more balanced, you probably do both. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that the only reason we're stuck in the past is because of that memory. The negative experience happened. We felt bad about it. It's stored memory in our body. The past is stuck in us. So you either logically and rationally, with reason, figure out what went wrong, integrate the opposite, or the solution, let's say. You'll have more confidence in yourself, and you'll know that that situation isn't going to happen again. Because you discovered what was wrong and integrated the solution. Very mathematical way of approaching things. And, well, of course, the opposite is just going the emotional route. Instead of reflecting upon the past, you just bring up the past, the images, and you work with your feelings, you work with your energy instead. Now, this is a lot easier, but maybe not. I mean, you could spend years reflecting and thinking about what went wrong and never figure it out. I mean, eventually you might, but the point is, it's a little bit of a longer way doing this. When, in fact, you don't have to think about it at all. Just feel it out of you. Breathe in those hard, difficult emotions. Because what you can do, well, first of all, what happens is that because there was a threat, the threat caused a negative emotion, which keeps you stuck in the past. The threat triggered you into fight or flight. So every time you're exposed to that pattern, whatever it is you're worried about or stuck about, you can feel it cause a little bit of anxiety, some tension. Like immediately once you remember the past, you're just, you get all tight, all contracted, frustrated, annoyed, because your body is sending you into fight or flight, ready to attack, ready to deal with a problem, ready to deal with a threat. So to combat this, you tell your body to be in rest and digest instead. So again, you expose yourself to the pattern, the information that is traumatizing, the information that is keeping you stuck in the past, the experience, the story. So you think about the story, and normally it's going to send you into fight or flight. You're going to feel anxious, but instead, you sit with that emotion, you sit with that anxiety. You feel it, you don't judge it, you just be with it. And then what you do is you focus on your breath. You focus on slowing down your breath as if you were relaxing on a nice beach. Because you can't be relaxing on a nice beach and being chased by a grizzly bear at the same time. Different systems controlled by the breath. So if you want to enter into relaxation, you have to breathe your way into it. Slow, controlled breaths with longer exhales and shorter inhales. Because If you're running away from a predator, you want a lot of oxygen. So you're going to be breathing really deep. But if you want to relax, you breathe more slowly, more controlled, more relaxed, obviously. And this is another way to reprogram that traumatized information out of you. Because the only reason you are stuck in the past is because your body recognizes a threat and it's keeping you stuck there, so you pay attention to avoid future negative outcomes. But once you take the threat and you change your relationship to it by entering into relaxation, your body now perceives, oh, it's no longer a threat. Because they're breathing relaxed. They can't be breathing relaxed and also be a threat. That's not how it works. So the body changes its relationship to that threat and cancels it out. So that the next time when you think about the past, you're a little bit less emotional about it. And you're less emotional and less emotional until you finally don't feel anything at all. And that is what it means to be free. It's all about learning how to communicate with your body. Be nice to it, not fight it. Happy marriage of mind and body. Because until the mind and body are united together, there will be imbalance, there will be many problems in your life. Thinking and feeling are absolutely necessary. The masculine and feminine, absolutely necessary. And you have to find out for yourself, what is life demanding of you? Life is calling you up to meet a certain expectation. And you either make it or you don't. And if you want to make it, you got to understand, what is it that is keeping you from rising to these expectations? And what that is an attachment to a certain kind of energy. You're relying too much on your strengths. So you want to learn how to use your strengths to develop your weaknesses. And then everything will be better. And you don't even have to be good at it. You can make mistakes and fall on your face 1 billion times. You could fail your way to the top. In fact, that's how you do it. You just fail until one day you stop failing so much. Or maybe you never stop failing. But it doesn't matter. Because failure isn't a bad thing. It's just we judge ourselves, we judge life as bad, as wrong. And so that's what we experience. That's why we had to change our attitude. Because if you continue to look at the past as, well, it's not my fault, and it's just some bad thing that happened. Well, okay. But how does that solve the problem? It doesn't. But the moment you say, okay, what did I do wrong? Now your mind is hyper-focused on the evidence that you need to move on. It's searching for it. It's trying to find it. Where's the evidence? What happened? It's also why we have to make the decision to live a better life, because until we make that decision, there's no direction. And because life is primarily chaotic, meaning it takes no effort to fall down, it takes a lot of effort to get back up, you'll go the path of least resistance and stay stuck. So you have to make the conscious will to get back up instead of staying down. And it takes a little bit of energy. It takes some intention. So what I want you to do, I want you to trust the process. I want you to have faith that everything's going to work out. Because it is, but you have to allow that idea in. The moment you begin allowing that idea in, the information that you need will draw closer to you. Because now you're open. Again, if you're so busy wallowing in misery, you're not open to anything. You're not open to change. You're not open to the truth. You're just open to suffering. Don't do that. And now you have some techniques and ways to approach the past that will help you become free from it. And after this, it's just walking the journey. It's just taking the next step. Because that's all you can do. You can only act in the present moment. And one of the wonderful things that I like to do is that, well, I don't even think about the past. I just move on with my life. I'm focused on where I'm going. And if the past comes up, I deal with it then. But sometimes you're stuck in the past for a long time and you got to deal with it now. Because sometimes, if you just have a strong enough vision for the future, the past is irrelevant. You just wake up one day and realize how stupid it is to think about it. All of these negative things, what's the point? I'm wasting my life thinking about the past. That which I have no control over whatsoever. So eventually you just grow out of it. Like I spent a long time thinking about the past, trying to reflect, trying to figure it out. I did the emotional work. And now, well, I really have no attachments with the past. Meaning, there's no memory that is ruining my life, and keeping me stuck. Maybe unconsciously there's some stuff. But the point is, I never ruminate on anything. Not the past, not the future. Even if my mind tries to reel me into it, it's just not desirable to do that. Because you realize, what's the point? Not only can you not do anything about the past, but it will perpetually ruin your future by preventing you from being in the present moment. So you got to figure it out. Or you're going to ruin your life. And I promise you, people stay stuck their whole lives because they don't know this stuff. They don't even try. And I don't understand it. Like, everything you could ever need to learn ever is on YouTube. So why? There's no excuses for anything. There's literally no excuses for anything. You can go on to ChatGPT and ask it the secrets of the universe, and it'll tell you. And because it's so easy, you won't value that information. You'll just throw it away. Continue on. That is why the first thing we need to do is have a desire to change. Because everything you need is already there. Not only is it outside of you, on the internet, but it's also in you. All the information you'd ever need is in you. But sometimes we need external things to stimulate something within us to awaken ourselves to our higher nature, to our own inner wisdom. And that's okay. It's not a problem. I'm just saying. If you want something, you can have it. Seek and you will find. But you have to seek. A lot of people don't seek. Literally, if there was one thing that you did that would lead you to success, it's trying to find it and not giving up. That is all. Like, literally, if you just go somewhere, one direction, and you don't give up, you don't stop, you'll make it. Doesn't matter how slow you go, doesn't matter if you get a flat tire on the journey, you'll still make it. Because you know where you're going, and you know that you're not going to give up. People fail in this life only because they don't try, they don't know where they're going, or they give up. I'm sure there's more, but you get the idea. If you take away anything, just seek the truth and you will find it. And you might find it in my video, you might find it in a revelation of your own self. But one thing you need to know is that life is always taking care of you. It's trying to give you everything you need. So if you ask with honesty, God, life, please, help me with this. Show me something. Something will be shown. And it will help you. A boon, perhaps, for your journeys. But if you don't ask, you won't receive. Closed mouths don't get fed. You need that earnestness to say, I'm done with this. I'm tired of this ruining my life. I'm moving on now. Let's go. Once you make that decision, bam, everything else begins to unfold naturally. So you don't got to worry about it so much. But now you know what to do. I am Ray, and if you don't want to spend years struggling and wandering, trying to figure it all out on your own, check out Monster Mind Mastery. Click the link below. This will help you break free from the past and your negative thoughts. Don't allow your mind to ruin your life. Not good. Much peace and many blessings. And remember, just be.